In today's episode of Spiraling Up, our team reflects on the Cracker Barrel rebrand saga and what it tells us about marketing in today's environment. But first, everyone, grab your drain snakes, grab your wrenches, and grab your plunger because we are talking to the CRM Plumber himself, Wayne Larson, about unclogging your most common CRM problems. Welcome, everyone. This is Spiraling Up. Welcome, everyone, to Spiraling Up, the podcast for professional services, marketers, and business leaders. My name is Austin McNair, and as always, I am joined by my co-hosts and colleagues, Mary Blanche Kramer.
Hey, Austin.
And Joe Pope. What's up, Joe?
Hey.
As we switching it up with you doing the hey today.
You took my
As we get
one-liner.
started, I want to say thank you to all of our listeners who are watching on YouTube. Give us a like, hit the subscribe button, help us grow our YouTube account. And for all of you audio listeners out there, old school, we love it. Thank you for listening and allowing us to be part of your day today. Guys, we have a great episode, don't we? I am in a great mood today because I just found out, I just logged into our ESPN account here for the Hinge Fantasy Football League. And Mary Blanche, wouldn't you know it, you and I played each other this weekend. I don't know if you were following it, but
we sure did.
Your boy showed up strong, and I'm off to a hot start here for this fantasy football season.
Yeah, I'm pretty bummed about that. I talked a pretty big game, and not a strong start for this lady over here. But good game, Austin. And I did see that we actually get to end the league this year playing again. So be ready for a rematch.
The buildup of that, I'm sure, will enthrall the listeners of the Spiraling Up podcast.
Well, we have been making mention time after time about how historically Mary Blanche has been quite successful in the fantasy football department at Hinge. I don't know how many seasons we've played together, but you have won more times than I have. Let's just put it like that. And Joe, I think, yeah, you're like historically on a skid in the Hinge Fantasy Football League, but you talk a big game in your other leagues. What's going on?
Yeah, well, when you're in, I believe, 7 fantasy football leagues, the amount of focus that goes into the one that doesn't have money associated with it usually is less.
That makes sense. Today, Joe, we're talking about your favorite subject, CRM platforms and systems.
I mean, it's second to fantasy football this time of year, but yeah, CRM certainly is one that is a reoccurring theme in pretty much every call that I'll have with a prospective client of Hinge. And a lot of times it's directly tied to, frankly, confusion. I mean, we've got all sorts of different ways of how CRMs could be misused. And I know that was really what intrigued us about our friend Wayne Larson, who fancies himself as a plumber of such issues.
Yeah, we're gonna turn now to introduce Wayne, but I'll say, yeah, this topic, while I was being a bit sarcastic, it's not the most exciting topic. You know, it doesn't get everybody jumping out of their seats when it's like, hey, let's fix our CRM. It's super technical. You have to get your hands dirty, but that's exactly why we called our guest Wayne Larson. He is the CRM plumber. So let's introduce him now. Hey guys, before we get into our next segment, I want to loop you into something that we have going on here on the Hinge side. As you know, we are always conducting research. We do it every year on what the fastest growing professional services firms are doing as a part of their marketing. So right now we are conducting the 2026 high growth study, and that survey is open and we would love your participation. Mary Blanche, what are we giving people that participate in this year's survey?
Anyone that participates, they get a free report.
Free report, yeah, worth $799. That's what we sell it for after the fact. And it's an industry report. It's whatever industry you're in. You select your industry and we'll send that report to you when it comes out in January.
But wait, there's more. In fact, if you complete the survey, we'll also be entering yourself in a raffle for a gift from your friends at Hinge of up to $500 worth in value. Are you looking for some Bose headphones or a cool podcasting mic? You can't take my job, I'm sorry. But if you wanted it, you could try to do it on your own. And using this gift from Hinge from completing the survey is going to be a great way to do it. Is there such thing as a but wait, there's more? Because there is. If you complete this survey by the end of October 2025, we'll give you 3 entries into that raffle. Get yourself something nice for the holiday season. Austin, take us home. Where can they take this survey?
Yeah, to take the survey, you're going to want to go to hingemarketing.com/survey. If you're on your computer, if you're watching on YouTube right now, hit the pause button. But come back and finish for the episode.
Please finish it, though, for the engagement. Yeah.
Hit the pause button. Go take the survey. We really appreciate it in advance. And let's get on to our episode. All right. Well, we're honored to welcome to Spiraling Up Wayne Larson. Wayne is the owner at Acesh Tech, a provider of CRM and marketing automation platform consulting services, similar to how a plumber works on your house. Wayne worked with his fair share of consultants while leading the connected application strategy for a $3 billion publicly traded professional services firm. And he has now opened his own plumbing shop where he shows up to his clients' proverbial houses, creates a solution, and then delivers on that idea all in one sitting. Wayne, welcome to Spiraling Up. How you doing?
Glad to be here. Yeah, I'm sitting in a recently purchased house. I've been actually doing some literal plumbing of myself too. Anyways, glad to be talking about tech. It's something I know a little bit more when it comes to plumbing than actually working on this pipe valve to my house.
Wayne, tell us, how does one become a CRM plumber?
Well, first, MB, you don't bite your nails, and you always know what rolls downhill. Just kidding. That's a great plumber joke every time. And all due respect to the real guys and gals and theys that have to know about that. You know, at the end of the day, having spent so many years in professional services, I couldn't believe how many pipes were just clogged, whether it's data, reports, value, and the like, and truly holding people back from getting everything out of their CRM. So after a decade plus of doing that, MB, I decided to hang my own plumbing shop. And again, not be afraid to get your hands dirty, go in there, figure out issues, solve it, and then move on with your day.
Wayne, in today's conversation, we're going to go through a few scenarios here, sort of a choose your own adventure style exercise. But before we get in there, I think a lot of marketers have arrived within the last couple of years into this position where the CRM system has become sort of like a frenemy. It's like it's their friend. They know they're supposed to be using it. Their companies are paying a lot of money to support that technology at their company. Yet at the same time, a lot of these companies set this technology up like 5, 6, 7 years ago. Yeah. I'm just curious, in your position right now, are you seeing a lot of companies like kind of coming to the table and being like, hey, Wayne, we set this up years ago and it's just starting to not run as smoothly as maybe we thought it was supposed to? Or I'm just curious, before we dive into our scenarios, like what's the conversation right now that you're having with people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about CRMs like houses, right? And the plumbing on a house. At the end of the day, you might buy a house from someone who owned that house for 10 years. They did a range of different things with their plumbing, maybe their electrical work too. No one wants to get shocked, right? And when you're in that scenario, you buy that house and then you start kind of peeling back. Whoa, this person put together what down here underneath my sink, right? Or, I thought every house comes with a garbage disposal. What's going on here? And so walking in, if you're a new marketer, into a CRM that your company's had for years is just that same exact scenario, just played out in tech. And so you go through the natural process, right, of identifying, hey, okay, what do I need to fix, or what's wrong, or what can last for a little while if I just drop Bitcoin on this specific part of my house, or maybe to buy it, or, a new piece of tech. And so when we make that comparison, as silly as it is, it's very real when it comes to the question that you just asked. And that's why we talk about it all the time. Because if you jump into it with that type of vigor, you're going to have success, incremental as it might be. But nonetheless, you'll be able to start to get more value out of your CRM, which, if you're a marketer, is also going to mean more value out of your marketing automation platform, maybe your DSP, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I can throw all of them out there, but you get the picture, right? You're going to get more value when you have a rock solid CRM and your pipes cleaned there out of everything else you want to do in your marketing strategy.
Yeah, one thing that we've continued to see in Hinge's ongoing research initiative, our high growth study, is how many organizations aren't finding success in this space. It is just a continued issue. Now, higher growth firms, though, have made some investments and they have put some effort towards these things. And as the purpose of that study is, we're finding direct correlations to what organizations that are more successful, what are they doing different? And so it's a perfect call out to why this is a great place where those marketers can start to see a tool that actually works.
Yeah, Wayne, I'll put some numbers to that. In the research report that Joe just cited, we asked over 700 professional services firms to rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10. How proficient are you in tracking and utilizing, marketing and business development data? Could you guess what percentage of people would you say rated themselves in that 9 to 10 range?
Oh, in that 9 to 10 range, it has to be single digits, right?
You're right. You're right. It was, I mean, it seems intuitive, but like for us, it's like, wow, it put numbers to this feeling that I think you're touching on, that a lot of marketers feel right now, which is like, even with all of this great technology, like we're not utilizing it well. We don't feel proficient using it. So all that to say, we're really excited to be talking with you. So Wayne, we've got 5 scenarios for you here. I'm going to read through them. The house is a mess. We've got floods everywhere. We're calling the CRM Plumber, Wayne, and you're arriving, and we've got 5 scenarios for you, and we want to let you pick, which scenario you'd like to handle first, which pipe to unclog. But here are the scenarios. Number 1, our data is a mess. Number 2, our reports suck. Number 3, our people are not using it right. Number 4, our marketing team is feeling overwhelmed. And then finally, number 5, our partners are questioning the CRM's value. So Wayne, you're the plumber. We've got these clogged pipes. We're going to go through some scenarios with you. Where would you like to start? What pipe should we unclog first?
I mean, I hate to be so easy, but we got to go data. If you're questioning the data, then it all flows from there. So let's go to the main supply and then pick our own path from there.
All right, well, I'll kick it off then. I think I was tapped for this one. So data quality, and I agree with you, Wayne. If your data is bad, then nothing matters after that anyways. You log into the CRM and you see that one of your most promising prospects, we'll call them Ghost Ranch Communications, has multiple records. One's got a full address, maybe it's right. One with just a city in it. And then we've got one that doesn't even spell ghost correctly, G-O-S-T. You see all of these different challenges and you start to look deeper and you see it across the board as well in other groups. How do we unclog this pipe, Wayne?
Oof, man. Look, if we're jumping in and we see that type of an issue, which again, we know is happening everywhere, the first thing you got to do is you have to understand where your main water supply is. I know, again, this is super nerdy. Maybe if you aren't a homeowner, there's a way to shut off water to my house, right?
Yeah.
And the equivalent to that in your database when it comes to duplicates is duplicate management and matching rules. And these are things that oftentimes come set right in your system and they have defaults, right? But if we're seeing Ghost Ranch Communications come up and go against these defaults and not prevent users from creating this multiple times, then we know that we got to go check on that main water supply and understand it a little bit more. So that's not the easiest thing to do. It's a little scary, right? I'm going to shut off water to my whole house, right? Here's an example in a database. Shutting off water to your whole house in a database scenario might be, we are never going to allow duplicate records with the same email address, right? That sounds simple, but if a partner says, no, this is their email address, and another one says, yeah, I agree, but I want to have my own record for that as well, right? Because you have some ownership issues in your actual CRM. Boom, here comes an issue, right? Now we run into this duplicate scenario. The same goes for how people might argue over how Miller Lite is spelled, right? When you said ghost without the H, I thought L-I-T-E, or are we talking about light, right? So at the end of the day, we need to understand where that water supply is, and we need to lean into putting some tough rules on there so that we can help everything else that's going to come into our house or our CRM from a data perspective. So that's one part that if you are close to a plumber or you fashion yourself a DIYer, which many people do, you can start to play around with and enforce. But the other one is like a Captain Planet thing, man. We got to be like all rings in kind of situation, our powers combined. Because if we don't do that and we don't empower users to manage through duplicates that they identify, like in your example right there, Joe, then we're just going to create this big clog, which I won't even go into what's clogging at in the house. And then we're going to have to unclog that each year. And so an approach that you could take there is, how are we visualizing duplicates, right? Or near duplicates to our users? And then how are we enabling them to actually solve those items? A really, really great example of that, and then I'll get on to this, but data is just such the hot topic, would be in your Ghost Ranch or Ghost Ranch communications scenario. Is the spelling really going to hurt? Do we need to figure out who really does or doesn't win in that spelling? Or do we just need to get it unified, right? In an account scenario or a company, we can probably acquiesce there. Now, an area we couldn't is if a deal or an opportunity was duplicated, right? That's real dollars associated with that. And we need to have a real human conversation about how that is or isn't deduped. But on the account side, you empower the user to dedupe that, and then you move on. So understanding what is critical water supply and what's not is another key in that, Joe.
And when you have these different types of what you can call like sub scenarios that fall under data, are you leaning into permissions, for example, and how you can potentially allow these types of modifications? Is it more of a reporting type process and then a centralized review? How do you typically handle that?
Permissions is how we would put that and pass that on to the users, right? That's how we would give people that type of access. And look, does everyone need that permission? No. But I've been in organizations where we have 30 marketers and everyone's like, nose goes, I'm not touching that duplicate. I don't want to do it, right? I'm like, no, dude, we got to empower you to manage that duplicate effort, right? So maybe it's not the partner that's managing that, but go to the people who are seeing that data each and every day. Then when it comes to the reports question that you asked, yeah, we can do that. But in my opinion, that's like, again, waiting for that big clog to happen in one of your pipes. If we say, oh, yeah, we're going to get to that report every month, or we're going to get to that report every quarter. And you're like, oh, no, I wanted to go do something fun on the weekend instead of unclog my pipes. So I didn't do it.
Yeah, makes sense. One last follow-up for you, Wayne. Assuming you get all the right permissions in place, you've got the right processes in place. We all know that even if you do it all right, you're still going to have some data issues. How often do you audit, for example? Like what's the sit down and like, let's just take a quick peek at this? Is that an annual thing? You doing that more times than once a year? What's your typical recommendation?
I'd say it absolutely depends on which piece of data we're talking about, right? If we're talking about, again, opportunities or deals, like real life money scenarios, we should have a higher frequency of audit. If we're talking about, again, an account name, or perhaps it's even just prospects, not clients, then we can, again, go through a different level of sophistication and frequency in that type of an audit. But as always, those are nice plans to have. But if we don't empower it each and every day, well, then that plan at the end is going to be just an epic hill to climb. And so I would say go for that little micro empowerment.
Well, I consider this pipe unclogged, Wayne. I appreciate you running down data. What's next, Austin?
It's easy.
It's Wayne's choice. He's the plumber.
Wayne's choice.
What's our next pipe to unclog here?
Well, if we're talking about data, then let's just move to metrics. Metrics would be the end result, right, of that data that we've just unclogged. By the way, it might have helped us find when we have an issue too. So let's talk a little bit about metrics.
All right, that's my topic here. And so the way we've communicated this is our reports suck. Wayne, our team was told to go into the CRM and run a report on the pipeline, on their pipeline. But there are dozens of pre-built reports, and I'm telling you, none of them seem to show exactly what I need. But I was told that I'm not allowed to build my own reports without a formal request from the IT department. So, Wayne, how do we unclog this pipe?
I got a hot take on this one, guys. Does the IT team or the head of sales or head of marketing restrict how many spreadsheets that you create on your desktop? No, right? That's ridiculous. And so we always preach to folks in my plumbing shop that a report is just like a spreadsheet, right? And so now you might not want to put the reports that you're creating ad nauseum like you would in a spreadsheet into the public folder so everyone can see it. but we all have private folders that we can tuck away that little piece of data or that little report where we're trying something, just like that spreadsheet we have on our desktop that no one sees until we accidentally share a whole entire screen one time. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they saw cat names in that spreadsheet, right? And at the end of the day, if we feel that empowered and we're an organization that's empowering people to access their data, then they're going to be able to self-solve for those my metrics suck situation, right? Or they'll be able to ask really good questions. And speaking of that, so off the hot take about being able to create your own reports, let's assume you can, or you are able to send this awesome podcast to your IT team and then they do it, right? But then from there, you have to still like know what you're pulling in the report. Okay, going back to the Excel spreadsheet situation, right? We know when we create an Excel spreadsheet what the headers or the rows and the columns are. But in a CRM, they're going to be creating those for you right away. And then you have to configure it to go and make your spreadsheet. Well, if you don't know what a field that you're pulling into one of your columns is, you got to start to date your data model. I know that's nerdy, but nonetheless, being able to go into the back of your system, even if you only have read-only access, which by the way, most people do in their system, you go into the back of your system and you go look up opportunity or deal as an example, again, revenue related. And if we're trying to figure out, is it amount or one revenue or lead revenue or the umpteen ways that we talk about revenue in our company, you should be able to go in your data model and identify what that definition is of it, right? If that's too scary, bring in all the fields into your reports and then start to whittle down from there using your own business acumen. So you got two different ways to start to understand your metrics better so you can hopefully stop that whole my metrics suck thing and actually turn it into some power.
I imagine like empowering people to go in and actually play around and build reports actually helps them become better at using the tool as well. I mean, have you had any experiences like that where this kind of philosophy change needed to happen and you've seen teams really elevate their performance in terms of using the tool?
Oh, yeah, absolutely is the answer. So I'll take another type of professional services example. A team that I was working with didn't realize that they had access to a treasure trove of data on OSHA violations, right? So for safety and the like. And this was a group that did insurance, right? Commercial insurance. And so having OSHA violations, slips and falls, or someone falls off, et cetera, not to make light of those things, are important. But being able to pull that live data in, which was happening through some nascent integration, they're like, oh my gosh, you know how much cooler I can build my marketing automation dynamic list now and be able to email specific prospects or clients based on a recent violation that they did or didn't have. And so by just opening up one of those reports, just crack that puppy open, right? And dump a bunch of fields in there to start to see what you might be able to see. And I know that that can make everyone better, raise everyone's game to the point that you just made, Austin.
Yeah, I feel like in that example, like like for me, like I don't consider myself a power user of, we're using Salesforce at Hinge right now, but I think there's probably like an opportunity for a lot of marketers, especially to just like broaden their imagination for what kind of data can come into the system with the right kind of reporting and metrics, like the one you just explained. So that's a really cool example. All right, I think that pipe is pretty unclogged. Where are we going from here?
We got to talk about users. Like, I feel kind of esoteric right now, right? I feel like a commercial plumber, and I want to talk about the people in their actual houses, like a personal house. Let's go to users and what's going on with them.
All right, that sounds good. So this is a pipe that we're calling our people are not using it right. Ooh. So in this scenario, partners and business developers are resistant to using the CRM because they don't see how it benefits them personally. So they still rely on informal communication channels like a big Teams thread, for example, to share their information. So this pipe is clogged by a culture of resistance and a failure to connect the CRM to the user's most basic needs. So Wayne, how do we unclog this pipe?
Oh man, MB, that's a great one. And actually I've seen this, right? We think that there's a common space that many users go and they want to just like put in notes, right? And they think that that's it, right? But then at the end of whatever it is, let's call it an event that people were at, and they were jamming a bunch of notes into a shared Teams thread. At the end of that event, someone comes into that Teams thread and then puts a bunch of information into Salesforce or into HubSpot or your CRM. And you're like, well, what'd we do this all for again? Right. Well, the real reason why we did it is because that's that common place, right? And so to your point about cultural stuff, MB, I think the first thing to start off with when you feel like your people aren't using it right is to truly ride along, right? What was that? That was like a Denzel Washington movie a long time ago, or anything.
Training day.
Training day. Boom. He's doing a ride along, right? Going to training day, man. Right. That one's crazy. Maybe lay off the drugs, but you get the picture, right? Which is like, you got to jump in and you actually have to go over that person's shoulder or be at that event to understand why they're using the tool this way. And so this can unclog incredible pipes, even though it's a very simplistic practice, but it takes courage. It really, really does. Because you want to get up in someone's business and see how they're using something that you've hypothetically developed with them. So to bring it back around to that Teams thread and at an event scenario that you were talking about, MB, when we truly rode along with one of my clients to see why that was happening, it was because they were using that thread, not just for lead communication and stuff like that, but they were like, sending pictures of themselves like, hey, we're out here at this event and it's super cool, and really like legit social things too, which is what that's for, which is great. And so if I knew that CRM isn't for that, right? But nonetheless, some CRM things are getting input into that thread, then we need to challenge ourselves to think, okay, how can I make this as Teams-like for the items that are pertinent to our CRM? And so in this scenario, the solution was, let's create an automation that right when you open your phone, just like you would open your phone to Teams, let's open our phone to our app, and we just have a blank text field, just a blank thing. And you can just jam whatever notes you want in there, hit save. It's not relating it anywhere. It's not going, it's not connected like a relational database should, but at least it's there, right? Which then helps us save that step from taking the big Teams thread there and then putting each and every one into the CRM after the event has stopped. So that's chipping away at it, right? That's like helping your pipes along, even though you might not have the best solution at the end of the day. And guess what? Like, we don't want the like selfies with, people and so on and so forth in CRM anyways. But we would have never known that if we didn't truly do a ride along, do a training day, like Austin mentioned, MB, in one of those situations.
Well, hopefully it doesn't end like the ending of training day for the ride along.
Oh my gosh,
driver.
I know. When I brought it up, I bring up Denzel all the time, man. But that one, I didn't think about the end of the movie.
Wayne, one thought that kind of comes to my mind too is it's like at how much, like, so we've done the ride along, we've survived the ending of the movie, and now we're thinking like, what's the type of rules in a sense we want to put into place? Like, how heavy handed should an organization be in accountability, if you will, to use the platform?
Yeah. I mean, this is when you have to bank on leadership, right? So if I'm a plumber, right, I'm going to walk into your house. I'm going to tell you what is and isn't right about your plumbing. But the owner of the house, right, whomever that is going to be the key decision maker in that. Right. And so in this scenario, Joe, if I'm a CRM plumber working with the events team that's going to all these events and they say, I'd rather go into Teams, and we say, hey, we should head into Salesforce or HubSpot eventually, we have to have a leader, a part of that, to bring that accountability into it. And guess what? The leader is the person who invested in that because they want to grow their business to the point of the metrics that you had mentioned earlier, Joe and Austin, right? And so that's where you can bring in a little bit of that accountability. Now, I don't always want to just say like, bring in the leader. It's like saying it depends as a consultant, right? But nonetheless, at the end of the day, these are critical situations where you have to have some buy-in, but you better make sure that experience that you've developed is as easy as possible. Because if you say, hey, leader, would you get behind me? And by the way, it's going to take these guys 5, 7, 8 clicks, and then they do this and they do that. Like, no leader will stand behind that, right? Yeah. So make sure it passes that leadership test, if you will, right? So simple, a leader could use it. That's terrible, but that's for Geico. And nonetheless, that's a really, really great way to approach it.
All right. Should we head into our next pipe here? We got 2 left. So what direction are you taking us next?
I feel like we put some things on marketing teams because I'll go off on that tangent at another time in life. But I think marketing teams are such critical pieces in everything CRM, even though they might not think and wake up every day and thinking they are. So let's talk about marketing teams and their feeling of kind of overwhelmness for a moment.
Yeah, that's a good scenario. It's one I hear Austin complain all the time about.
Is it a
No, I'm
good
just kidding.
scenario? It's a scenario that I'm not familiar with.
You're never overwhelmed, big guy.
I'm never overwhelmed.
But let's just hypothetically say that Austin was overwhelmed. And he's come to me and he's talked about how we have this CRM platform. We have this marketing automation platform. We've made these investments. We've even had some training, maybe with the plumber. And we're expected to use this pretty much right away from day one. The whole system feels overcomplicated, though, and people are starting to use it the wrong way. And we're not necessarily having that adoption thing come across the board. The timing isn't really making sense. We're starting to fall into old habits, Wayne, when we come to our marketing efforts. How do we unclog this pipe?
Yeah. So too often, and let's in your scenario here, Joe, assume that the marketing team has ownership of the map, the marketing automation platform, right? That's connected into the CRM. And so how can we make sure that we're enforcing usage, ensuring that there's usage, but also helping them show people like we're using this, and then also protect them? Because in this scenario, we know we see a lot of marketing teams go all in on their map, right? And then CRM's kind of chilling right here, which is fine. If a really good integrated system is that way, you can do a lot in your map, right? So end of the day is, one, we need to make sure that when email sends are happening, when form clicks, when downloads, etc., that data needs to be front and center in CRM, right? One thing that I recently developed for a CMO at a company was on his homepage, he was seeing the most recent email that went out, right? And it could be to 2 people because it's this small, super hyper targeted ABM thing, or their entire list of 10,000. Now, that might seem so darn small for a CMO to see, right? But at the end of the day, that's fresh data saying, look, my marketers are crushing it, right? And they're using the tool right in here. And so putting in some of those small metrics right in front of leaders can be one way that helps the people who are overwhelming those marketers know, dang, they're really cranking, right? It's not just a bunch of email magic going on behind the scenes. The one other would be, and I see this all the time for marketers that like fought really hard to get Zoom info integrated or Seamless or all these other things, right? And I mean, they put their budget on the line because they're like, man, if we can get our leads appended with data, then all we have to do is ask for an email address, and then all the other data will happen, right? Bing, bang, boom, our conversion rates go up, all this wonderful stuff happens, sales starts picking up on it, life's good. But that's a whole lot of eggs we're putting in the basket for this third-party tool to append the conversion that happens on your website or so on and so forth, right? It should come through, right? So I've been in this situation. So anytime you're connecting new things into your CRM and you're especially in a marketing capacity, make sure you're creating what I like to call oh crap dashboards or oh crap reports, right? Which is like, let's build this and assume that it's going to work. It's going to be the best dang thing I ever seen. But the day it breaks, right? I don't want a salesperson coming to me and saying, the water is rushing out, right? From the second floor because the toilets broke up there, right? No. We want a little ping. We want to know. We want to have visibility into that, or maybe even see trends, right?
Right.
And where a break might happen in some critical infrastructure. And that's all stuff that marketers can build for themselves to sort of cover their buns, right? At the end of the day, and make sure that those things that they invested in are still working, are still cranking, and are still developing great things for the company and for the firm. So, oh crap reports, man. If you've never created one, go in like right now and create one, right? Because you can do it on anything. Just ask yourself, what in my life could break? And you can usually list like 3 or 4 things, and quickly create one or two of those puppies. And by the way, subscribe to that report and it will just hit your inbox when the oh crap metric or threshold is hit, and you'll know before anybody else.
Yeah, so they're functioning in a sense as your oh crap report is the canary in the coal mine, if you will.
That's it. If more people knew that, right?
Yeah.
All right. So that leaves us with one last pipe to unclog, Wayne. Mary Blanche, I think the remaining one is with you. What's the scenario for Wayne?
Yep. All right. So for this last pipe that we have to unclog, this one is going to be all around, our partners are really questioning the CRM's value. So a new CRM was implemented with a goal of being a treasure trove of insight. But our firm's partners, they're pretty skeptical. They're from their perspective, they're just not seeing the value. So they're asking for static one-off reports, and they're still pretty resistant to logging into our CRM to track their pipeline or engagement with prospects. And they want to know, why should they keep paying for a system when they just really feel like they're just filling a leaky bucket day in and day out? Wayne, how would you unclog this pipe for us?
Wow. Well, at the end of the day, that's a tough one. And it's one everyone faces. No matter if you have or haven't unclogged those 4 other pipes that we were talking about, MB, you're still going to have to answer this question on insert time framed basis, right? Let's call it every 2 or 3 years if you're lucky, based on the renewal of your technology, right? When these questions come up, all you can do is have really small micro habits leading up to that to try to dispel, right? Or try to get to that place where people are more excited about this as opposed to questioning. So let's walk through 1 or 2 ways, maybe even 3, about how we get there. How do we get them seeing ROI? First and foremost, you have to meet them where they're at. I know we talked about that a bit with users, but let's talk about that with each and every person that touches the system. If we think it's field of dreams, if you build it, they will come, that ain't happening, right?
Yeah,
and so meet them where they're at, which is their inbox. Everyone knows, right? Everyone's in their inbox. And so let's even call it, for each and every person that has a revenue goal that's entering in deals, let's make sure every 10 days they receive a report in their inbox, subscribe, that says, these are the deals that you input in the past 10 days, or these are the deals that are going to be closing in the next 10 days. That starts to immediately get it more top of mind for them. Almost think about it like a little drip marketing coming from the CRM itself in the most admin techie way. And there are 1,000,001 other ways to go about that. We talked earlier about, showing the CMO what emails have been going out. Heck, you could do that to the whole dang firm, because everyone on this call knows that we have clients that say, oh man, when we send an email out, every time a partner comes back to me and says, did my client get that? Did that happen? Right? And that's a hard thing that we need to be able to answer. And so why not get proactive about that? Meet them in their inbox. So if you're not looking into subscriptions for your data, for your reports, then do that right when you stop listening to this podcast today. That's going to be critical. So that's a little micro thing to get there, MB. Another one at the end of the day would be being transparent. Now, I'm really sitting as a marketer on this one, right? And at the end of the day, we know that people who are in revenue generating roles, they got all their business right here. We sit here as marketers like, wow, that person's not hitting their number this year, right? What's going on there, right? Or, whoa, man, somebody crushed it. And I know that they get comp 33% annual revenue, man, I better holler at them, right? Let's do this. But why don't marketers have that, right? We can. Why don't we have a big flashing light that says, yeah, I sent out this email to 10,000 people and we bumped up over the 1% unsubscribe rate on that, right? If we start putting a little skin in the game that way too, that starts to create this culture of accountability, of transparency that oftentimes can help people see more value in multiple areas of the CRM, of the map, of all the other things that are interconnected. Another one on that type of transparency, it doesn't have to be just how many campaign or how much did we influence in revenue, right? Mm-hmm. Another one could be even how much you're using a tool that you asked leadership to buy into. So again, let's go to ZoomInfo or Seamless. Hey, this many people were appended with data, right? And this many people appended with data turned into revenue. Now, I'm not saying that this amazing appending made it turn into a deal, but at least that was one little piece of value that we added along the way to factor in as maybe micro ROI of sorts, right?
I think that's really important, though. I mean, because I mean, one of the aspects to Mary Blanche's scenario there is like this continuing conversation about cost, right? And we got, Lord knows, Salesforce and HubSpot want to get their money right now, and they're starting to crank up those prices. And then you start doing those add-ons like a Zoom Info and stuff like that, and the prices are going up. So I think there is something behind what you're saying there of us being able to pull those little threads of ROI of like, hey, we're paying for this specific add-on, this technology. Here's what we're getting out of it. Here's the insights we're seeing. Here's the value we're getting from this. And without it, we wouldn't have it. I love that point.
Well, that brings me back to like that little marketer's reality that I was talking about a minute ago, Austin. I almost went on a tangent about it. I'm going to come back to it because MB inspired me on it, which is, and everything that we talked about in this episode, we're talking about things that oftentimes at professional services firms, especially small, middle market, marketers are going to have to be either the champion or likely even the person with their hands on the keyboard doing, right? Earlier, I was mentioning a Wall Street Journal article to somebody about how DIYing is like up like crazy right now. It's something like 82% of people are consider themselves DIYers right now. Thanks, YouTube, right? But nonetheless, that's great. And take that energy that you probably are DIYing up in your house right now and apply it to, again, building reports or connecting deeper technology, upskilling on these areas. You might not have, again, woken up and thought, dang, CRM is going to be really important to me today. Dang, I need to make sure that these pipes are unclogged or these dupes aren't happening. But if you can see the big picture on how much value that's truly going to bring, especially when those costs are always increasing, like you said, Austin, then you're going to be a marketer that is in the driver's seat of revenue, of strategy, and all the other places that we know marketers should continue to be as customers, clients, and the like continue to be more and more important, especially in a digital way.
So Hinge's high growth study had another major finding that popped out at us this year, and that was tied to AI. And it's the number one business concern of high growth organizations. How do you see AI, other than HubSpot and Salesforce claiming that their AI is the greatest AI that ever graded? How do you see AI completing the picture of creating this value connection in your CRM to leadership?
Oh man. Without unclogging all the pipes that we had just talked about, the 4 prior, it's going to be really, really hard to make that case for it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, let's go back to that whole, is it easy enough for leadership concept, right? So easy a leader can do it. That's great, by the way. Sorry. I'm just like loving myself.
Geico. He's here. Bring him on board.
So in that situation though, right? If we are going to be making that play for AI in any way, shape or form, Joe, as a marketer or so on and so forth, let's make sure that those other pipes are unclogged so that we don't layer on a bunch of AI to think like this will absolve all of our sins. And I will never have had to call a plumber for 10 years at my house and think, oh yeah, my pipes are like squeaky clean, right? No. Let's debunk those myths. Let's make that right. Then start to layer those things on, especially when it comes to your data, your CRM, and the like.
Yeah, the garbage in, garbage out problem when it comes to AI, I think is it scales at a level that is faster than I think we can imagine. I mean, as humans, we can run pretty far with bad information and bad data, but AI agent or robot will run a lot faster and create a lot more problems faster if it has the wrong data or bad information.
I just have to riff on that, Austin, right? Yeah. So if I'm a marketer, I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, freaking every one of my states in my CRM doesn't talk to the state field in my marketing automation platform, right? Because I got a bunch of these freaking partners that are writing it as Pennsylvania and not putting PA. Right? And now I'm like, well, basically I can never send a state-based email ever again, right? Okay, perfect opportunity to use AI and take not sensitive information, but just take the ID of the specific account as an example, or company or contact, the ID,
record ID,
the record ID, and then put it next to the state put it in a big old spreadsheet, put it into your favorite little chat GPT, AI, ML, et cetera, right? Get it back out, upload it, and voila. And then solve it by connecting those fields in their data type into the future. But that's a way that you could use bespoke AI to solve a little problem of yours, right? That you thought was previously insurmountable without, I don't know, getting an intern or something of that nature.
We got 5 unclogged pipes and a bonus AI example there. Crushing it. Cool. Well, Wayne, this has been great. I mean, super insightful discussion. I mean, this podcast is all about helping professional services marketers and leaders. And yeah, like we said, this is a major elephant in the room for many companies right now and trying to figure out their CRM platform. So thanks for your time. And where can people learn more about you, and where can they learn more about your company and get in touch with you?
Yeah, just find me on LinkedIn, Wayne Larson. I could tell you a million and one other ways, but if you like what you heard and you like what's going on at Hinge, then hey, happy to always keep a thread going. Again, I'm a plumber, single shingle, always happy to chat, check out your pipes and go from there. So Wayne Larson, Ace hashtag.
Cool. Well, thanks, Wayne. Thank you so much. And next, we'll dive into our next segment. Stay tuned.
In today's pivotal story, how do we know when a rebrand has failed?
When that company scraps it in less than a week.
Well, recently, that's exactly what happened to Cracker Barrel. For decades, its logo has featured the Uncle Herschel leaning against a barrel. But in a bid to broaden appeal, the chain unveiled a simplified text-only design. The backlash was pretty immediate, and critics called it a textbook case of a company losing touch with its core identity. And within days, Cracker Barrel restored its original logo. So now that this saga has come to a close, what lessons do we think that professional services firms can take away from this very public branding misstep?
I wrote about this on LinkedIn, and I think that you can't call yourself a marketer today if you're not posting on LinkedIn about the Cracker Barrel rebrand event. It's just too big, it's too mainstream. So I had to share my thoughts, and I think that there's a lot of people that had a lot of perspective on this, a lot of political perspectives on this. I tried to look at this as like taking the furthest possible step back that I could, in terms of like what is this reaction really about? Because this is not the first time this year that we've seen a major brand undergo some sort of rebranding process, and like people and just like the cultural sensitivity level is like to the max and people are freaking out. I think with Cracker Barrel, it hit like a really acute point, and the word that I summed everything up with is nostalgia. And what I mean by that, and there's been a lot of people writing about nostalgia as just a general marketing trend, is that we are undergoing a time of accelerated change right now, just broadly. A lot of us kind of put the mark around the pandemic, where everybody's life just kind of got thrown up in the air. And since then, it's just like change. Like the rate of change and acceleration has really been unprecedented, and people are tired of it. And
Yeah.
so like little things like a rebrand of a restaurant that you haven't been to since you were a kid, you take it personally. It's like, why does everything need to change all of the time? I think there's just people that are kind of sick of the change. And what I wrote about was essentially like, if you think about a brand that sort of already naturally was into that, hey, come on over, come sit in a rocking chair, relax, have a cup of coffee. Cracker Barrel kind of comes to mind. And maybe there was an opportunity for them to play into that a little bit more. But no, what they did is they scrapped it for another hyper minimalist logo, like everything looking like Panera Bread, or everything looking like really boring. Let's make all the buildings box shape and turn them all gray and brown. I think people are just kind of sick of it, and they feel like there's this broader cultural erosion of things that they grew up with and things that they liked. I don't think that's political. I just think it's kind of human nature. So that was sort of my takeaway. And maybe before I throw it to you guys, just like what would a professional marketer take away from this? I would go into and say trust, right? Professional services brands are there to build trust with people. And so if you are going through a rebrand, or maybe like a generational change, think of like a law firm or an accounting firm that, for years it's had this one person's name on it, and that person's now retiring and it's time to rebrand. you have to continue to instill trust with those people and the people that person had a relationship with, that you guys are a great service provider and that you're going to carry the banner forward. And I just think that these kind of cultural things that are happening out in like a Cracker Barrel, while it doesn't seem evident, like, oh, that has anything to do with professional services marketing, I think it is evidence that people are highly sensitive right now. So we have to be very diligent and very cautious as we enter into big changes about our brand or our messaging. We have to do our due diligence. What do you guys think about this event, and what were your takeaways?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned the the browns and the grays and the box design. It reminded me of our conversation, the pivotal story we did with Christian just a few weeks ago about the world is losing its color, and when we talked about that, we talked about how everything the Nikes, the Apple, McDonald's of the world, and how when you look at where they were just a decade ago to what their brands look like now, that oversimplified approach. And this is just another good example of kind of seeing that take hold again. So it made me think of that a little bit. I think too, on the topic of design, it's a common misconception with rebrands that, a rebrand is really just a design exercise, right? And it's not. It's about insight and strategy, and it's really rooted in consumer understanding. So I think they definitely missed the mark by not really trying to understand their audience better.
Understanding and trust. I think both of those things. Yeah, I mean, we talk about the importance of trust in professional services and how monumental that is to make sure that you're maintaining that even in your marketing stage. But I mean, I think it does translate over as well into the consumer stage as well. It's like you trust this product is what you believe it to be, or what it has been, or what it could be moving forward. And I think you talk about this misstep, if you will, and this challenge that Cracker Barrel went through. Anybody in their right mind could have looked at that type of circumstance and said, that's not what Cracker Barrel is, right? You walk into a Cracker Barrel. Allison, I loved your joke. It's like you haven't been there since you were a kid. And I mean, it's probably been a beat, and we can talk a little bit about why it's been a beat, right? But you walk into a Cracker Barrel, and I mean, I'm immediately picturing just the station of tchotchkes that were just everywhere, and all the little doohickeys, and the fact that you had something to mill around and do while you waited for your table to be ready. Like, I mean, I can describe the experience of going to Cracker Barrel right now pretty vividly versus another restaurant or some other generic box. I think you shots fired at Panera with that. It's not as memorable. Like, that experience is completely different. It's just generic. So when a organization that has built its kind of reputation, its brand, all of these different pieces, just nukes it for whatever this new luxury feeling, minimalistic, it's great for accessibility on your cell phone, nothing that has anything to do with Cracker Barrel, goes and tries to ram that through. Of course, anybody who had that kind of experience like I just talked about is going to be like, no, that's crap. That's the disassociation we saw. I know, also, you said it's like the political side of this. And I mean, I think we can't get away from the fact that there is some political overtones anytime you do get into this minimalistic stylization or things along those lines. But even this one across the board, I was seeing posts from like the Democrats' Twitter account, the Republicans' Twitter account. They're all basically saying this is ridiculous. Like, nobody wants this. Get rid of this. And that just points to the research side of this. Had they done any amount of customer research on this, they would have known that this was going to fall flat. Anybody of any age group that is a buyer of Cracker Barrel's, we'll call it amazing, we'll call it breakfast or lunch offerings, if you will, they would have given them that insight. So I think this is just another example of, hey, let's try to paint by numbers that you'll sometimes see in the hyper expensive marketing and branding world, and it just completely blowing up in their face.
So some trends we've talked about here. We talked about nostalgia. We've talked about cultural sensitivity. MB, you've talked about how, kind of going back to the episode with Christian, the minimalist style kind of taking over everything, and maybe potentially people are getting tired of it. And Joe, you're talking about that broader point about research and due diligence really needing to be kind of the foundational part of a rebrand. I'd say those are 4 pretty good takeaways for professional services marketers about an industry that has nothing to do with what we talk about normally. We are not food and restaurant experts. And honestly, like this is probably a very unenviable situation for them, because they're rebranding for a reason, right? They kicked this off because they probably need to do something to attract a new generation or bring in new customers. But in this moment, in this climate, the way they did it, it blew up in their face and became one of these viral internet moments. And yeah, they have gone back to the original logo. It'll be interesting though to see if they slow roll it out in a different way, right? So maybe the logo doesn't leave, but maybe all the other stuff that they worked on just slowly creeps in there, because again, less people are going in and out of those restaurants and seeing every day and really paying attention to how fast these things change, or if a company changes their menu and stuff like that. Only the diehards would notice that. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to follow up on.
Yeah, you referenced the need. I think in preparation for this pivotal story, we were looking up things like earnings reports and so forth. Like, so why did they do this? And 24 for them was flat. It was basically even, and that was with an extra week, an extra calendar week, if you will, last year in 2024. So, I mean, they were feeling a lot of that pain that you're seeing across the board with franchise-based type restaurants and things along those lines, and thinking, okay, well, it's time to shake it up. Well, they sure shook it up.
Mary Blanche, when we were preparing for this segment, you had brought up that there was another pretty well-known brand from the food and beverage industry, Patron, Tequila, that also just went through a little bit of a rebrand themselves. Not really in the headlines like this Cracker Barrel story. Like, what have you seen coming out of that story?
Yeah, so it was also their first rebrand in decades, actually. And I think it's a good example of an organization that does do their market research. So they were able to really evaluate their consumer base and came forward with a rebrand where they didn't lose their heritage. They elevated the look, but they still honored what they had traditionally been as an organization. So I liked it. You guys know I love a good margarita, so I thought they did a good job.
It translates really well to, I think, what we know when people are making selections in the food and beverage industry, right? Where it's a lot of it is that initial impression, and the bottle design, which is clearly what the big focus of this branding was for them. The across the board in the tequila industry, the bottle design, same thing in bourbon and other places, is a big way, or somebody will make a decision to purchase that product. And Patron's a well-known name, but it's going up against some of these newer brands that are coming out with these really interesting labels and bottle designs. And they needed to make a change, but also not completely disassociate themselves from their target audience, the margarita drinkers like yourself, Mary Blanche. And I think you're right. It's clear. I mean, somebody who's not even a tequila drinker, I look at that, I was like, that comes across as something that I would pick up and buy for somebody. It looks good.
Yeah, and I think this is a great contrast from like the Cracker Barrel one, right? Which completely disassociated itself from its previous kind of brand and brand design and imagery. For this, they took the elements that were popular about the current brand and what people like about it and associated it with, and they went deeper. So they highlighted a few things here. They talk about a bold new bottle inspired by the agave piña, which is excellent. That's baked right into the actual product. An enhanced front label and a fixed neck collar. They said thoughtful references to the agave plant reflect the craftsmanship behind the brand. The heightened focus on the iconic Patron B matches the spirit behind the unique blend of all natural ingredients, blah, 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 blah. They took what was good about the brand and they went deeper. Whereas this Cracker Barrel one, it's like they took kind of the signature, part of it, which people think about, like they associate it with the barrel, the rocking chair, and they stripped that completely and entirely out of it. And I think that's what people were noticed right away. It's a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everyone. Well, this has been another episode of Spiraling Up. Thank you so much for listening again. If you're still watching on YouTube, quick, before you close the tab, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We're going to keep rolling out the episodes every other week for you of Spiraling Up. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much. Leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to. And on behalf of Mary Blanche, Joe, myself, and everyone on the Hinge team, thank you so much. We'll see you on the next one.